Welcome to the Rebellion. Welcome in, everyone. Good to have you here on this Wednesday on Redacted. I'm Clayton Morris.
I'm Natalie Morris.
Meanwhile, we're almost about to hit 35 trillion. We're getting very, very close to 35 trillion in national debt as this economy continues to descend into chaos. Hey, we've got a lot of news to get to on your Wednesday. We're getting crazy new details about what unfolded in Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday afternoon. Turns out the official narrative is starting to crumble in real time. Eyewitnesses who saw multiple shooters, multiple locations, and new information about the alleged shooter from the alleged shooter's family and law enforcement we're going to get to.
Plus, Biden administration is in shambles because he may not get the nomination at the Democratic convention. So we're seeing the RNC, the Republican convention, going relatively smoothly. The Republicans seem pretty coalesced around Donald Trump as their nominee. Democrats, not so much. We're going to show you how that house of cards is crumbling and how Democrats tried to pull a fast one and slip Joe Biden onto the ticket without actual representation. It's unconscionable and more proof that the Democrats are authoritarianism.
Well, we were just talking before the show, Democrat Adam Schiff, just moments ago called for President Biden to resign. Publicly. Adam Schiff, who wouldn't do that before, is now saying that. So this is a big moment for President Biden right now. Also, did the deep state have a plan in place for the assassination of President Trump for many years? Going through plan A, plan B, and when those didn't work, executing plan C, which looks like it didn't work either. We will talk about all of that and more, plus your super chats today on this Wednesday. Good to have you here joining us. I saw someone in the chat just a moment ago on YouTube saying hello from the International Space Station. Do we literally have someone watching us from the International Space Station? I think we still have astronauts stuck up there because we decided to go to war with Russia and we have no way of getting them back. So if you're on the International Space Station, hello to all of you. Good to see you.
I'm telling you, man, if I were Donald Trump, I would eat no food given me. I would be going to pick it myself, eat it from the tree or bush. I mean, what is happening?
Well, did you see Vladimir Putin, came out in an interview with Oliver Stone? This has resurfaced over the past few hours. Vladimir Putin saying, he had a lot of calls with Castro telling him, make sure you pick your security yourself. Mm-hmm. Make sure you're actively involved in the people that surround you. You have a hand in the security because, I'm not touching any food. We saw the poisoning just over the past 24 hours. In Thailand.
6 businessmen from their teacups drank cyanide. They could have been women. I'm not exactly sure of the gender, but good grief, you guys.
Yeah, so who's the taster? Who's doing all? I mean, this is some serious stuff, especially when you have Chuck Schumer coming out. That video has resurfaced over the past 24 hours saying that the deep state, that Trump has been picking on the deep state and they should watch their back because of what the CIA, the NSA, and the FBI could do to you. And we know that they love to carry out assassinations.
Maybe we should all do this. From now on, I'm going to talk to you in code. And when I say, hey, would you like to have Chipotle? What I really mean is Chick-fil-A, right? Yeah. We're going to have code in our family. We'll write it down and then we'll all eat the paper.
That's good. Hey, our friends over at Moats were chatting about us today. George Galloway. We love George Galloway. Big fan of the show. And of course, Jackson Hinkle and the whole team. I think Jackson was on there today. So hello, Moats. Hello to our friends George Galloway over the pond. Good to see all of you guys, all of you truth tellers. We don't have an agenda on this show. Our goal is the truth, and wherever the facts lead us, we will follow them. So that is our goal here on the show. So let's get into it today. The media and the government want you to believe the official story that 20-year-old Thomas Crooks tried and failed to assassinate President Trump. That he was a lone gunman, right? That's the official story. There's now overwhelming evidence to overturn that official story and raise serious questions that at the very least he had help, and at the most there were multiple shooters. We spoke to an eyewitness who was in the bleachers behind President Trump. She witnessed Corey being shot and killed, and saw gunshots hitting multiple locations. And we're going to share that interview with you here in a moment. It's shocking. It's heartbreaking. She's an amazing woman. She comes from an amazing family. And we're going to hear her story in a second. It'll blow your mind. Now, first, though, moments ago, the House of Representatives subpoenaed the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle. Here is from Congress of the United States of America and the House of Representatives and the Committee on Oversight and Accountability and Congressman Comer's office saying that, wait a minute, you were going to appear testify before Congress on Monday about the failure of the Secret Service. But now it looks like Alejandro Mayorkas, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, has stepped in and will not allow her to testify. What? Really? What is Alejandro Mayorkas trying to prevent her from saying in front of Congress?
Well, it's interesting, on the same day that DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, says, we're going to do our own investigation, meaning Congress, we don't really need you. You don't need her. We've got this. So you need to step back. She actually doesn't need a congressional testimony. She doesn't need to be photographed or videotaped answering real questions. We're on this one.
Someone in the chat says, Clayton forgot to shave today. No, I didn't. I intentionally didn't shave today. You want to hear a story? The other day, I shaved and cut my nose wide open, and blood was pouring for like 20 minutes. Like an hour. I couldn't stop it.
Yes, so, I had to run to the drugstore and get him a styptic pen.
So I'm holding off on the shaving for a few days.
So he's rocking the 5 o'clock shadow.
I got the 5 o'clock.
On purpose.
Yeah, it's not unintentional. Thanks to the chat for being eagle-eyed, though. I appreciate that. So now, according to the subpoena, Kimberly Cheadle was set to testify. She's not any longer. And so now, as you point out, Congress is saying, we're going to take matters into our own hand. We're going to subpoena. We want all of the diagrams, photos, aerial information, communication that you guys had on the day and leading up to this event. Fascinating. So we'll see if we get answers from Congress on this.
Including, what was the plan? We know what was executed. We know where people were and where people were not. Quite obviously not, right?
Yeah.
But was there a different plan? Because there are some people, including Dan Bongino, who was former Secret Service agent, saying, oh, no, there was a plan to have people on that roof. So what happened?
She stood them down.
Right.
We now know she stood them down. They were told to stand down and not go on that roof for their safety because of a sloping roof, which is, okay, that's now her responsibility. That's her fault. Why did she ask them to stand down and not go on that sloped roof?
Right.
Which everyone is mocking now, of course. So you need to ask yourself.
The memes are everything, though, about the slope. I'm at least having fun with that. I hope you are, too.
Yeah, if you're watching on Twitter, you see the cows on slanted roofs and so forth. They have cows and all sorts of things on slanted roofs. So anyway, I want to know why Mayorkas doesn't want her to testify. Why? What is Alejandro Mayorkas trying to hide by not having her go in front of Congress? And new video has just surfaced from the deep state, Satan herself, Victoria Nuland. Here she is just a few hours before the shooting, guaranteeing that Trump won't be president because a surprise is coming.
Our economy, et cetera. So I don't think that Donald Trump is going to be president. So if that's what Putin's betting on, he's going to get a unhappy surprise, I think. That is number one.
An unhappy surprise. What could that be?
I mean, she seems very psychic. She knew the Nord Stream pipeline would not go into effect. That's strange.
She's great at predictions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wonder if we should hire her for some kind of, Madame Crystal Ball events. That'd be funny. She might be fun at parties.
She'd be great. And yeah, it'd be like, call me now. What was her name? The old, the woman you call the hotline. Call me now. Anyway,
I don't know.
Victoria. Anyway.
I'd be checking her family tree to see if that shooter came from, if he's anywhere in her branches.
Well, yeah, I mean, other than the fact that he was in a BlackRock commercial inside a school, and then BlackRock, of course, we know their connections to the federal government and the CIA. So other than that connection, who knows? But again, they want you to believe that he's the guy, right? Thomas Crooks. They want you to believe that he's the shooter, right? Meanwhile, CBS is reporting that a detonator was found on Crooks's body right next to where his body was shot and killed on that rooftop. His parents also called police on the day of the rally. Really? He's missing? He's 20 years old?
We're learning the shooter's parents called law enforcement on the day of the rally to say they couldn't find their son. We know they're cooperating with law enforcement, and this comes as a new photograph obtained by local station WPXI shows a detonator device found next to Thomas Matthew Crooks' body after the attempted assassination. Crooks had explosives inside his car, found parked near the rally, and bomb-making materials inside his home. The alarming photo raises questions about whether Crooks had other plans as he opened fire. Less than 200 yards away from the rally stage, while positioned on a rooftop, which the Secret Service says was within the perimeter delegated to local law enforcement.
And now we're learning that police knew about Crooks 3 hours before the shooting. He came in with a rangefinder, and police and Secret Service said they'd keep an eye on him. They were aware of him. And new video from DC Drano this morning reveals the shooter was walking around 1 hour beforehand. Take a look. So you can see him here in the background there, walking around, scouting out the location apparently. This is 1 hour beforehand, walking around, looking up, security. What's this guy doing here? But that's an hour beforehand, 1 hour ahead of time. And police didn't engage him. He was allowed to leave the area. Where's his gun, by the way, at this point? Well, he was actually allowed to leave the area and only return with it, was able to come back with a backpack. Eventually climbing on the ladder near that HVAC unit onto the structure behind the buildings and then onto the roof.
Well, some reporting says that he went through security check.
He did
and
go
security said,
with a
let's keep
rangefinder.
an eye on him. But then they didn't.
Right.
Then let's, the same way you keep an eye on your kid when you're at a barbecue.
So you bring a rangefinder, which is not maybe altogether that crazy. I mean, after all, you've got a lot of individuals who, are using it to be able to see closer.
Sure.
To the, you want to, like you wear, use binoculars at a musical or something like that, right? To get a closer view of the stage.
Like at the opera, those.
Well,
yeah, like the little monocle thing.
Hold. Sure.
And when I go to a concert at a festival these days, they open your backpack and they check it. You're going into a presidential convention with a backpack that's not checked?
Well, interesting piece about the backpack story. I spoke to an eyewitness on this who said they were told and sent emails before their arrival, no bags. Not allowed to bring bags. No bags. And eyewitnesses were seeing other people were bringing bags and saying, well, they're going to be upset because they're going to have their bags taken. Like, why are you bringing a bag? We got emails saying explicitly no bags. And then they were able to bring bags right through security. They didn't take people's bags at all. They hardly even looked through them. This is unbelievable. So what's going on here with the bag searches? They received emails saying no bags. People showed up with bags and were allowed to bring bags in. Okay, that's a huge lapse. I'd love to hear Kim Cheadle's response to that. Why did they make that sudden change? Why was that suddenly allowed to happen when they had received precautionary emails ahead of time? I wouldn't bring a bag if I saw that. I'd be like, no, they're going to take my backpack.
Right.
Right? So why even bring it?
I mean, Clayton's been known to smuggle burritos
into a movie.
Places. Yeah, where we're not supposed to bring in food.
Yeah.
He has done that.
But not a rifle.
But not in a backpack. In his pocket.
Now I just carry burritos in my pocket, if you know what I mean. All right, so now we have new video evidence also shows the shots fired at the hydraulics that were coming from the back left side of the stage. People reported shots hit, and then you can see like a gas exploding. People are wondering where all this like mist and gas was coming from. Now we know that was hitting this hydraulics behind the stage, and then it created like a bit of a cloud there. So this is coming from the left side. And you can see on the left side of your screen, this person ducking down as well. And these shots coming from the left side, according to eyewitnesses. And we have eyewitnesses saying these initial shots came from the direction of the gymnastics building that we talked about here yesterday on the show, which is about 400 yards away. And again, this is also in the same direction as the water tower from that direction to that stage where that hydraulic section was hit. And where when those other bystanders were also hit behind the stage area where President Trump was speaking, over 400 yards away. A building, by the way, the gymnastics building, that was vacant on Saturday and which had the same line of sight as the water tower. Multiple eyewitnesses now say the water tower direction. Shots were fired from that location. Multiple eyewitnesses.
And they had been right by the fence where the other shooter was. There was one I heard in the water tower. There was one by the fence.
And still, obviously, initial reports. But what we do know...
First crack of the gunfire, and I just screamed, it's the sniper, and he was firing down toward the water tower.
That's what we're hearing.
Gentleman behind me, I was one seat, he was to the right of me. He could see the sharpshooter behind Trump. He said the sharpshooter shot to the left. He killed the gentleman in the water tower here.
CNN almost had a heart attack yesterday when U.S. Army sniper Corey Mills was on CNN and suggests that the July 13th assassination attempt on Trump could have been a setup. And he also pointed out the water tower, and Kate Baldwin flipped out. She's like, oh my, what? You're saying this was a setup? And he's like, all the evidence seems to, he's like, I know, I hate to say it. And they're almost freaking out. What are they going to do? Cut away from him? But here he is. He's done this thousands of times. He's a veteran U.S. Army sniper. And he said, just doesn't add up. There had to be a setup. Watch.
I look at all of these things, and I look at different videos where an assailant will pull a firearm on a law enforcement officer, and the first thing they do is they immediately pull and draw and mitigate the threat and the risk. I ask why the local law enforcement officer did not do so. The other thing is that when you set up an advance team, I keep hearing this about the perimeter elements.
Yeah.
The perimeter is actually established by your threats that are in the area. So if I don't have any threats outside of 100 yards, okay, fine, I can cordon off a certain area. But if I have a building 160 yards perfectly adjacent to the stage, that's an obvious threat, especially with an elevated position that has overwatch. Mm-hmm. That's a sniper's paradise. And, we talk about Eagle's Nest. You also have, which no one talks about, but the water tower.
So what I'm hearing from you is it's not a failure on the ground for sure, but also a failure in advance?
I think it's a failure in advance. I think it's a failure to...
So then he dives deeper into the setup and the water tower. It's great. It's like 8 minutes long. I encourage you all to watch it. Now, earlier today, I spoke with Melody Hook, an eyewitness. She was there. She was behind Donald Trump in the bleachers with her husband and family. She saw Corey shot and killed right before her eyes. She says the official story is not true. You need to hear this, and wait until you hear what she says about the shooter's bomb-making evidence and the bomb crew and the FBI who showed up to take away that evidence. Watch.
The shots came from behind that red Harvester that was sitting there. It didn't come from in front of it. Yes.
So it didn't come from the building that everyone says it's coming from.
Well, see, that's just it. We were in the bleachers. Corey was positioned over here. He was on the far side there was 3 sets of bleachers. Trump was in the middle. We were here. And then there was another set off to the other side. We were in the same set that Corey was in. So he was
Corey who lost his life, the firefighter who lost his life.
Yes. He was clear to the one end and we were kind of towards the other end. Like we watched the snipers go up onto the roof, get into position. And prior to that, I said to my husband, okay, we have a 5 o'clock start time. Trump's to speak at 5 o'clock. What's going on here? So the snipers did not go onto the roof. I look back on my photos last night's time. They didn't go onto the roof till 5:08. Is the time I took pictures of them climbing up the roof on the 2 roofs behind us. We only saw 4 snipers positioned that evening. Could there have been more off that we couldn't see? Possibly, but those are the only 4 that we saw. So they get up there. It was around 5:08 when I was recording them, and they kept looking. After they got up there, they kept looking to, straight ahead of them. And down below on the ground, there's like military. But I said to my husband kind of jokingly, I'm like, wow, seems kind of lax, like not that much presence of, like protection right around where Trump is going to be at. For somebody as big as what Trump is, I was a little bit dumbfounded. Like I jokingly said to my friend the day before that, she says, listen, I'm worried about you. I don't want you to go into this. There's crazies everywhere. I said, listen, we're going to the safest place I feel we could be. There's going to be so much Secret Service there, blah, blah, blah. I said, the only thing I'm worried about is my cell phone dying because I don't know if my battery's going to last. Like just joking about it because I felt safe. Fast forward ahead a little bit, we get to the point where it's almost time for Trump to come out. And they start, playing different music and everything. And music starts, Trump starts to come out. And of course, we're all focused on him. No, that's who you're waiting to see. You're not going to look around at anything else around you. You're just focused on him. He comes out, like I said, he talks to my son and his, my friend's dad, like they're yelling, we love you, Trump. And he stops and points at him, says, I love you too. And just calm and cool. And he goes out and interacts with some people, goes up and starts talking. And we're only a few minutes into it. Like he only spoke 10 minutes. Right. It wasn't very long. He was speaking at all. So all of a sudden you hear like all this commotion off to our right. And it's just but like I said, you're at a Trump rally. It's noisy. People are not quiet at a Trump rally. So I just kind of looked at my husband, gave him like this weird look. And at that point, I think he was more this way than Trump. Like he's starting to get, so we're just sitting there and all of a sudden you heard it. You just hear the gunshots. And sorry. I looked down at my niece and I just yelled at the boys. I said, "Get Riley." So they dove, they just like dog piled on top of her. They're just laying on her, covering her. There was a couple of kids behind us, and I grabbed the little girl. I just held her and I said, "I got you. I got you." And I laid on top of her I put her down in the bleachers and where your feet go. And I'm laying on her and I just start praying. Like, please, God, please make sure we're okay. Save us, Sorry, my dog's barking. I'm like, please just save us. And I was just trying my hardest to compose myself, but I didn't know what to do. So, we're all laying there, and the thing I remember the most was Riley looking up at me and just the fear in her face and the screaming. She would not stop screaming. That's all it was. It was just pure panic. And the shots just acted like they lasted forever and they weren't stopping. And I'm telling you, I never ever, it was surreal. It was just, I did not dream something like that was going to happen. I saw Corey get hit I saw him get shot, and I yelled, because you got to think this all took place within a matter of seconds, seconds. And I yelled back, like where we were at, the bleachers were kind of open, and I yelled back at the security behind us, and I yelled, "He's been shot. He's been shot." And I think at this time they could all, just everybody was stunned. Like nobody had a clue what to do or where to go. And by this time then they come up around, and our set of bleachers was just flooded with cops. Like right now, they just come out of everywhere. Let's just put it this way, where my kids were sitting at, when we look at the pictures of how the bleachers were, I don't know how it missed them, because they were right in line with all of that, just the way everything was going. And yeah, and I am beyond angry. I am beyond frustrated, because this could have been 1000% prevented. There was nobody over there. There was nobody to watch us, and there was nobody to protect us. And when you have that many people there and there's a chance of something like that, I feel you need to have more than less. And there was definitely not more than less that day. I want answers. I want to know why we were all put in such danger. A good friend of mine, my phone was blowing up because so many knew we were there. And a friend of mine messaged me. I don't want to say names or anything, but she messaged me and she says to me, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, we're fine. We're fine. Everything's okay. We're home." And this was later that evening. This was later into the evening. And she says to me, she said, "FBI and bomb squad are at our house." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well," so I was asking her last night, I said, "How far away are you from where this all took place?" And she said probably 10 miles maybe, if that. They found the white van. The white van was found. She saw them tow it from right around her location. It was right next door to her.
10
the white
miles.
van that was supposedly full of explosives, and that guy was supposed to have had a detonator on him Now, you
Right.
tell me why. He goes to all the hassle when he has a van full of explosives and a detonator. Why was it parked 10 miles away from the fairgrounds?
10 miles. And how does a 20-year-old scrawny guy in summer heat walk with a gun all the way from that 10 miles to this location?
Exactly.
What did she say the FBI and the bomb squad said to her? Did they say anything to her?
All that she would tell me was that they told her that they could not leave their residence. They were to stay indoors and they could not divulge any information. I don't care if Trump is if you hate him tremendously, if you can wish evil upon somebody, you need to find your heart. I mean, we need God back in our country so bad. I went to church yesterday and prayed with our pastor after work because I don't know how to navigate this. I don't know how to be strong for my son. I don't know how to be strong for my niece. I lay down at night. I hear the screams. I hear the shots. I see all the fear on everybody's faces. I see us all laying on top of each other, trying to protect each other. How do you get that out of your head? Like, I don't know how to go about. I don't know. I don't know how to do it.
Oh, bless her.
Yeah. I mean, think about having to dive onto your child to protect her in those stands. And then those people watching somebody right a few seats over from you be killed in Corey.
And until that moment, I hadn't considered how intimidating this is for Trump's supporters as well. Who's going to feel safe now going to a rally? And how intimidating this is for the political process. It's very discouraging for those of us think that we are exercising our right to support our candidate of choice.
Right.
And what the repercussions are for that. Something that has been haunting me all day is that the Butler County Sheriff, Michael Sloop, said that the officer who climbed up on the roof encountered the shooter, had the gun pointed at him, and then climbed right back down, said, well, that guy is not a coward. He's a hero, because had he not interfered, then the bullet would have been fired sooner. President Trump would not have turned his head. And so that makes it a near miss. So that guy is a hero. But you can't have it both ways, because by that logic, that guy got the fireman killed. And so you're just choosing one life for another, because by that logic, had it hit President Trump, it would have missed the innocent civilian. And so you're choosing which life to value there, which is a horrible thing to do. So I can't get on board with that. Like, oh, we just delayed the crime, because isn't the job of law enforcement to stop the crime?
Also,
full stop.
Also, it's a lie. Because we have eyewitnesses who saw that police officer climb up the ladder, and confront, get face to face with this individual, and then fall off down to the ground.
Right.
So not, oh, there's a guy with a gun. Okay, you're shooting a gun. You're pointing a gun at me. Let me back off. I'm going to go back down the ladder. No. This person, he just fell off. He just fell off the ladder onto the ground.
Do you think? What are we surmising from that?
Well, I'm saying that this idea that he was like heroic, and he's like, you better put that gun down. I'm going to back up. And he bought time for President Trump.
Right.
Like he saved President Trump's life because he backed up.
Right.
And then he fell. There was no reporting of that from the sheriff. He fell off the ladder, fell down to the ground.
But again, if you're taking credit for saving Trump, you have to take responsibility for having the fireman killed. That's the only way that logic works. Right. And so then that family has now a case, in my opinion. If you've just said we saved this guy by delaying this, then you're responsible for the death of the innocent man. I don't know. I would like to, again, I have an appetite for consequences for all involved in this. So,
and the two motorcycle police officers who assisted the Trump team when they were leaving, and they were now suspended as a result of it because they didn't have the authority to go after and help the Trump team. So two motorcycle police officers we're now also hearing reports about. So I think the official story is now collapsing. And I think we need to be very skeptical when the government tells us anything. Mm-hmm. And you're having all of these eyewitnesses. And you have, for instance, Melody and her husband, who are avid hunters, who are around guns all the time. They know. And you have all of these eyewitnesses who are seeing individuals and hearing gunshots coming from a direction that was not where this building was. Why do you also have Kimberly Cheadle telling these Secret Service officers not to go on top of that rooftop? Why was there no one else in the water tower?
Right.
Why were these locations not secured? Why was their security cleared out behind President Trump during the speech? All of these things. And now Kimberly Cheadle is not going to be testifying because Alejandro Mayorkas, the head of the Department of Homeland Security, doesn't want her going before Congress. Like, really?
Well, and it'd be one thing if her story was consistent, but her saying that about the sloped roof when that's not as sloped as where they had the snipers, like
doesn't make any
her
sense.
whole logic falls apart.
No, it never was cohesive to begin with. And
I'd almost believe it more. Natalie, we were talking about this morning, it was pretty hot that day. It would almost be more believable if she said, well, it was hot that day. We didn't want these guys on a hot roof.
It was cat on a hot tin roof.
Cat on a hot tin roof.
Actually, that's a redacted viewer who pointed that out. Like, it was record temperatures, so it might have been hot up there, and he's laying there for how long? His behavior seems more and more to me almost like the Imperious Curse from Harry Potter. Like, he was put under something, doing something on someone's behalf. But I think another interesting part of this is that as this narrative crumbles, how the media continues to hold to the single narrative, right? We've seen rumblings around, it was Iran. Okay, there was a threat of Iran, but there was no increased security because of Iran. And they continue to lack curiosity about these pieces that continue to have the rug pulled out from under them. So that just makes us want to ask even more questions because we're not even a week out from the event. So we're going to continue to ask them here on Redacted.
No, and I also should point out, I've said multiple times here on the show, the deep state will not allow him to become president of the United States, right? And we have confirmation of this from multiple Democratic sources. Chuck Schumer speaking on behalf of the CIA, basically.
Yes.
Warning that something bad is going to happen to President Trump if he keeps needling the CIA and the deep state, basically. Victoria Nuland.
Yes.
Just hours before saying the same thing. So again, they do not want him to become president of the United States, regardless of how you feel about him and if you feel like he's like divinity walking in a human body. But nevertheless, the deep state is not happy with him. They do not want him to be president of the United States. And they absolutely fear that he comes in and he wipes them clean and he shuts them down. That's their greatest fear, that he ends their jobs.
Yes.
So we'll have more on this. We're going to continue to follow this story, and we're going to continue to look deeper into a lot of the questions that still need answering, and we hope that we get them, but we will follow that. We're also going to be talking today about President Biden trying to basically sneak through using a process to get in to the Democratic National Convention as the nominee, using a virtual process. Well, now we're learning that has been shut down. This could be the last-ditch effort from Team Biden. Adam Schiff, just a short time ago, Congressman Democrat Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff, coming out and calling on President Biden to resign. So this is the first time we've had a public announcement from Adam Schiff on this point, but we'll talk about this sort of sneaky moves that the Team Biden is trying to pull right now. But first
we want to tell you about our friends over at Bank on Yourself, because, if you watch commercials on mainstream TV, it would tell you that the best way to augment your wealth is to invest in your 401k or your IRA and max out those investments. But of course, what that means is you're partnering with the government to invest in the stock market. It's not really for you, clearly, it's for them. But there is another retirement plan that you can look into if you want to be in control of your wealth, and it's called Bank on Yourself. It is the proven retirement plan alternative that lets you bypass Wall Street and the government and beat the banks at their own game and take control of your financial future. It is guaranteed predictable growth and retirement income with, again, no guesswork. Your plan doesn't go backwards when the markets tumble based on government perversion. It's both your principal and your growth that are locked in. Plus, it is tax-free retirement income. You know what your tax rate will be in retirement, which is 0 under tax law, which protects you from the coming tax tsunami. Plus, you are in control. Now, when we tell you about these financial product alternatives, all you have to do is say, okay, I'm going to set aside half an hour or an hour with either my spouse or my loved ones and decide to learn about this and make an informed choice about whether or not it works for us. So set aside that time and learn if Bank on Yourself will work for you. Go to bankonyourself.com/redacted. You can get a free report, again, with all the details on how Bank on Yourself strategy guarantees your retirement plan. Go to bankonyourself.com/redacted. Again, for your free report. One more time, that's bankonyourself.com/redacted.
So get in all your super chats today. We're going to open up some super chats today and have a conversation with you guys. Love to get your thoughts on what's been going on in the news. And so any questions you have here, fire them away. Also, I should promote, I'm just trying to lock in and confirm we will have Whitney Webb is going to be joining us. We're going to do a deep dive on Peter Thiel, who, by the way, I'm just gonna, well, I won't say it. Because it's kind of a personal thing to say. But anyway, we're going to do a deep dive on Peter Thiel now that J.D. Vance, of course, has been chosen as Vice President of the United States under President Trump. We're not going to leave any stone unturned on that regard. Why is he really a honeypot to conservatives who really want to continue the war on domestic terror? Of course, his connections with Palantir, his deep connections with Palantir, and how much money he's been donating to J.D. Vance. So we're going to do a deep dive on that story tomorrow, just kind of confirm it with Whitney, but likely either tomorrow, hopefully tomorrow. If not, it'll be early next week.
But first, we'll take a look at President Biden's bid for re-election, because the Democratic National Committee had been trying to sneak President Biden onto the ticket with desperate measures such as a virtual vote a whole month before the convention. Now, I'm going to give Clayton points for this if you'd like to do an I told you so victory lap, because you had been saying many times that they are going to try and sneak him onto the ballot and leapfrog the democratic process because he is such a problematic candidate. Do you want to do a victory lap and say I told you so?
No, I'll do what Trump does when someone says something like he goes, oh, he always like tilts his head back. He's like, oh, I didn't know.
Okay.
Thank you.
This is your wife giving you the option to say I told you so. You will not have this opportunity again.
Well, no, and this is the cloistered Biden administration right now as they were going to pull something similar to what happened during 2020 when they were able to use the pandemic as an umbrella, right? To do it virtually, not have to be there physically, and to have people sort of send in their stuff ahead of time, get him on the ticket. Hey, we already did it. Sorry, he's already our nominee. We don't even have the convention.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your I told you so credit expires.
Okay.
If he's not going to do it, I'll just say Clayton told you so.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. There we go. All right. So the way this is supposed to go is how we're seeing it play out at the Republican National Convention this week. The delegates from each state gather. They cast their vote for or against the party nominee based on the speeches and debates that they are supposed to be able to have at the convention. Now, what we're seeing at the RNC right now is not a lot of division. They are pretty coalesced around Donald Trump as their nominee, but they are supposed to at least be afforded the opportunity to oppose or bring up alternate points or debate points should they want to. Now, the Democrats should absolutely get this chance too, especially because they are clearly not in unison around Donald Trump as their candidate. Just today, Chuck Schumer coming out and saying, Biden shouldn't be our guy. He's just not fit for the job. It's time for him to step aside, yada, yada. I love him. He's done a great job, but not this guy. Now, they had floated the idea of a virtual vote, but Democrats actually came out in drone force and said, oh, no, this is not right. We should do this the right way, at least do it with a vote by the delegates at the convention. And they called the DNC out for this clear dictator move. And now CBS reporter Aaron Navarro is reporting that Democrats have stepped back and said, actually, we won't do this. Here's a letter that they published that says, okay, no virtual voting before August 1st, which is what they had said they would do, using the excuse that they needed to rush the vote to meet the Ohio state deadline for the ticket, even though Ohio changed the deadline for the Democrats. So they needn't have done this. Here is Democratic candidate, former presidential candidate Marianne Williamson, explaining what they were doing and telling the delegates to remove your vote from Biden if they do this. Watch.
Here's the deal. We're getting mixed messages from the Democratic Party. On one hand, Democratic leaders are saying that they're trying to have private meetings with the president and they're trying to convince him to release his delegates in order to have an open convention and in order for us to have a chance of winning in November. But on the other hand, the DNC is actually doubling down on its insistence that it be Biden. And so they're doing something you need to know about, and you need to know how you can powerfully respond. They're holding a meeting this Friday that is the Rules and Bylaws Committee. And what they're going to try to do is to have an early virtual roll call before the convention nominating Joe Biden. So the only chance now to stop this is for you who are delegates to use your power and to step in. How do you do that? You do that by sending a communication. It has to be before this Friday, and it has to be notarized, saying that you, as a delegate to the convention, no longer automatically pledge your vote to Joe Biden. That according to the dictates of your conscience and your firm belief that we're in trouble regarding the election in November, you want to hear from any other candidates, you want to open up this convention.
All right, it's supposed to work like that. It's not supposed to have these kingmakers that are just step right into the role, right? That's how it was designed, is that people go there and make a bid to the delegates. It's not supposed to be a foregone conclusion once we get there.
There's a long history of massive fights breaking out, right, at conventions. I mean, there's lots of history. Only until modern history have we had these nominees sort of selected many, many months ahead of time as the chosen ones. There are times when, of course, you've had members of the House of Representatives. You've had governors, you've had other individuals who show up at these events and they walk out of there like Grover Cleveland style as the nominee. Like, hey, I went to a convention today and I was a lowly member of the House of Representatives, and then I came out of there today as the nominee for the presidency for the Republican Party.
Yes. So, I mean, at least the delegates are supposed to have a modicum of choice. What I like what Marianne Williamson further said on X, that if the Democratic Party continues to act like this, it will never regain the trust of the electorate, as if they have it right now. Recall what they did to Bernie Sanders. They shouldn't have our trust after what they did to Bernie Sanders, what we learned from WikiLeaks. But okay, let's pretend, right, that they've lost our trust right now. She says it's impossible to overstate the dereliction of patriotic duty now being displayed by a party that suppressed its own candidates, Bernie Sanders and Marianne Williamson included, basically coronated someone incapable of defeating a genuine threat to our own life, has dithered instead of handling the problem, and now tries to fix it by doubling down on their foolishness. They deserve the crash and burn they're attracting, but the American people don't deserve it, she says. And this is a valid point. Now, when this news broke that they were going to try and slip in this virtual candidacy, at least 3 Democrats spoke up and opposed it. That was Representative Susan Wild, Mike Quigley, and Jared Huffman, all said in a signed letter that this could deeply undermine the morale and unity of Democrats. What unity are they looking at? I have not seen some in a while. Now, Democrats are saying that like any Democrats that oppose this, saying that rushing in and virtual voting is a Trumpian maneuver. I wonder, when did Trump do something like this? Try and rush the vote. He did all his primaries, didn't he? He won his primaries. He waited for the nomination, or presumably because he will get it tomorrow. When did that happen? This seems like their argument is that Trump would do things like this. This is a play out of their playbook, is to, sort of warn you about what the other side would do while they do it. That sort of authoritarianism 101. So now that the Democrats will have their vote by their delegates, will they cast it for Joe Biden? This is the question, right? This is the hanging Chad. This is the unknown, and it's not at all clear. Look at this recent report by Politico showing that most other Democratic candidates would poll higher than Joe Biden. This is their findings from a Politico report. Now, it does not say that any of these candidates could beat Trump. It just says that any of these alternative candidates would do better than Biden.
This includes Vice President Harris.
Right, but it's not their favorites to do this. Now, look at the candidates that they think would do better. Missing from this list is Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris, AOC, Elizabeth Warren, the normal people that think. Michelle Obama, right? So these are actually brand new faces, besides Gretchen Whitmer, who we see talked about a lot. But Mark Kelly, Wes Moore, the governor of Maryland, Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania. So that's pretty interesting. These are brand new faces. Again, they say that any of these people, not that they would beat Trump, but that they would poll better than Biden, that they would lose less than Joe Biden as it stands right now. So will they actually switch out for any of these faces? I feel like because California continues to just burn right in front of us, my beloved home state of California is no template for what we want for the rest of the country. So they're no longer talking about Gavin Newsom. They know Kamala Harris is a bit of a losing battle. AOC, Liz Warren, they're too radical. So it's interesting to at least see these brand new fresh faces, but is it too late to sell them to the American public? So let us know what you think. Will any of these people be the surprise candidate, like Clayton said, Grover Cleveland style? Or are we just going to get the old slip with Joe?
Yeah, and he's not the only one, Grover Cleveland. I mean, there's so many, throughout history that go into the convention and they duke it out,
right?
And they come out after a few bloody days of deciding for their party who's going to be the nominee. So multiple tickets, multiple votes, like it's not a foregone conclusion. Now that's why these conventions really don't mean anything, but now it actually might mean something,
right?
Because I think that this actually gives them cover. This gives Democrats cover, quite honestly, who wanted to push him out. Adam Schiff, of course, coming out today saying he needs to resign, but other Democrats can lean on the delegates now. They can go into this convention. They can be quietly making phone calls to all of these delegates saying, here's where you need to put your vote. Here's where you need to put your vote. And then suddenly it can be a shock.
Right.
A shock convention vote. And we didn't have anything to do with it. It was the delegates who thought you were too old. It gets them off the hook.
Right.
It gets the Nancy Pelosi's off the hook. It's now on the delegates, the nameless, faceless delegates. Who knows who a delegate is?
I brought that up like a couple weeks ago, I think, or maybe last week. I don't know. Time doesn't exist. But this is how they save face. This would be the way they save face. Like everybody comes out clean if they do it this way. If Biden steps down, then he looks weak. Everybody looks weak, and so they have to do it this way.
I mean, are we making room for sincerity? That it could actually be like a sincere process where they sincerely nominate someone new and have an argument about it?
Well, I mean,
I can't handle sincerity from
at the heart of
politicians here on the show. I'm going to leave.
At the heart of it, I mean, this is what they were saying, right? Which is that they would do it virtually ahead of time, so it'd already be finished.
Right.
Right now, they're leaving it open, and so there is this sincerity here that they could actually maybe try to pretend that there's sincerity. I'll give it the glean of sincerity.
Let's leave space for that they could return to the times of yore and actually have a candidate that they want. So that would be interesting. So let us know what you think of this. We're going to continue to watch this unfold because it's convention season. It's very exciting. We're here for it.
Henry Mann, thank you for your $5 super chat. Stay the course. Keep telling the truth. We intend to. We are not paid for by any of the big tech companies. We don't take money from any of them. We have a few sponsors that we have here on the show, and that's very minor, but we are supported by you guys. So thank you guys so much for supporting us here on the show.
We're having a summer storm.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can hear the summer thunder. It's pretty exciting.
Can you guys hear it?
You can hear it? Okay. So if you hear that in the chat, it's not that we're gonging anybody, although many times on this show I want to get a gong and just gong people for saying stupid things.
That's just on the side here. When a politician says something stupid, we just get up and gong it.
Like anytime you say Victoria Nuland, I'm gonna gong
can
her.
We do that? We got my sound pad here. Yeah. One other piece of this story I find fascinating. What do you make of this massive short selling that happened right before Trump's attack? Who knew that it was coming? Or is there anything to make out of this? Eagle-eyed stock observers. I wonder if Nancy Pelosi shorted Truth Social stock, DJT, which is the stock handle, the ticker symbol for Truth Social. The shorts skyrocketed in the week before the assassination attempt. Went from 7 million up to 15 million from July 1st to July 2nd. And I guess they thought that on Monday morning, Trump wouldn't be alive any longer. So interesting on the shorts piece of this.
Okay. Follow the money.
On that. Yeah. Follow the money. Exactly. Yes. We're going to talk about, Roger Stone in just a moment, because he laid out a deep state plan, said that they were planning to assassinate Trump for years, and they went through plan A, plan B, and plan C was the assassination attempt. We're going to hear from Alex Newman, journalist who spoke to Roger Stone on this story. He's going to join us in just moments. But first, we want to tell you about our friends over at Shopify, because our entire store is built on Shopify. If you go to redactedstore.com, you can see it in action and see what it looks looks like. We sell our shirts, our mugs, our stuff over there, our hoodies and everything like that. And, we do it. We really try hard to make sure that you have some great items over there. And we couldn't have done it without Shopify. It's the all-in-one e-commerce platform, the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. So when we were thinking about building our store, we didn't even think twice about it. We're like, we're going to Shopify and we're going to set up our store. It was able to be set up in a few minutes. And our team, Grim on the back end, he was able to go in and be able to launch our store and be able to add and update with different graphics and different shirts and different designs and all of that right there inside the store. So whether you're selling digital items or you're selling news items or whatever it happens to be, it's all in one e-commerce platform is Shopify. They're there to help you. Their in-person point of sale system to whatever you're selling, Shopify has you covered. So right now, I want you to try it. So you can get it, just try it right now. Sign up for $1 per month trial period just to see if you want to try and do this. Maybe you've got something you've been building and you want to launch it for the first time to start your business. We need entrepreneurs. We need more people starting businesses in America. And so go to shopify.com/redacted. Take action. Even if you're nervous about starting your business for the first time or kicking it off the ground, you got to start somewhere. It's never going to be 100% perfect when you start your business, okay? I mean, we're fixing things all the time here on our show, right? Lights, sound, everything. We're constantly tweaking and fixing. It's never going to be perfect, and Shopify helps you start right from the ground up. Shopify.com/redacted. Sign up right now to get your $1 per month trial period. Again, that's shopify.com/redacted. Well, was there a deep state plan to assassinate President Trump years ago? A plan in the making for many, many years. A plan that would only be carried out if plans A and B failed? Well, according to our next guest, yes. And we just saw in action this weekend in Butler, Pennsylvania. Alex Newman, in fact, wrote an article about it back in 2018 where he detailed this plan, talked about it with his sources, Roger Stone and others. Alex joins us now from Liberty Sentinel. Thank you so much, Alex, for joining us. I wanted to get you on and be able to talk about this. So thanks for coming on the show.
It's great to be here. Thank you very much for having me, Clayton.
So my pleasure. You wrote this piece back in 2018. Roger Stone, of course, thinks something very, very fishy happened in Butler, Pennsylvania. But I just want to put this up here on the screen. This is your piece you wrote back in 2018. Deep State Plan C is to kill Trump, advisor Roger Stone warns. What did Roger tell you?
It was fascinating. So this was in the first year of the Trump presidency, and it was very obvious that the deep state, no matter how you define it, was coming after Donald Trump. You had the intelligence community going after Donald Trump. We were right in the middle of the Russia hoax, the Mueller investigation from the FBI. They hadn't yet started openly talking too much about using the 25th Amendment, although Roger Stone predicted that was going to be the next step. So I actually went to Roger's studio. I went to his house. We talked about this for a long time, and he told me everything was on record. So I went back and I wrote this article. He said if they can't get Donald Trump out using the Mueller investigation, if they cannot get him out using the 25th Amendment, they're going to go to Plan C. And he had already obviously looked at the assassination of John F. Kennedy. He, Roger Stone, regardless of what people might say about him or think about him, he understands, I believe, American politics and the way things work in the United States political realm better than probably anybody else. He was there with Nixon. He was there with Reagan. He was there with Senator Bob Dole. I mean, he's been around. He's been with Donald Trump since the 1980s. And what he said is they will try to assassinate him. And so I went back and I read that article after the assassination attempt. I'm like, man, everything Roger said was going to happen actually happened. And then we see this assassination attempt. And I'll tell you what, I don't claim to know what happened, Clayton, but I don't believe for 1 second that some doofus 20-year-old on his own decided to buy an AR-15 and take a shot at the next president of the United States. I don't believe that for a second. I think based on what I've seen over many, many years of research, that guy was probably the fall guy. The fact that he's dead is very, very convenient. Were the FBI talking to him? Did they convince him to do something dumb? I don't know. Hopefully we'll figure out more in the months to come. But I don't believe the story we're being told at all.
I don't either. I think you're absolutely right about that. And now we know that there's zero information about this kid. The FBI scraped his phone. They found no signs, nothing at all, nothing, no one in the community, zero information about this guy, nothing with him. He played video games all the time. There was nothing in forums, nothing him connecting with anyone. We learned this morning, zero information from this 20-year-old kid. And Roger Stone has told me, and he's told others on X as well, publicly, so not just privately, that something absolutely fishy is going on here. We posted a poll on our channel asking how many of you believe that this shooter acted alone. Overwhelming. Tens of thousands of votes say no way. No way that this individual acted alone. So I absolutely agree with you. Let's talk about the plan A and B. Because I think that's fascinating. So the deep state was trying to go through sort of legal means that they could try to derail Donald Trump. When that didn't work, plan C. Can you kind of detail some of plan A and B? And I think we've seen some of that in action clearly in courtrooms over the past couple of months.
Yeah, we did. And the plan A, I think it was multifaceted. The Russia collusion hoax was probably the most obvious example of what that looked like. And it wasn't just Donald Trump either, right? The way that they took out General Flynn so rapidly. I knew right when Donald Trump named General Flynn, I had followed part of his career. I had seen what he had said about what the Obama administration was doing in Syria and Libya. So I knew this guy was the real deal. I didn't even know him personally at that time, but I said, wow, this guy knows what he's talking about. He knows where the bodies are buried. There are powerful people in Washington who aren't going to like it. And so we saw this massive setup where they took out General Flynn. And in the years after that, we saw them go after Roger Stone. We saw them go after Steve Bannon. We saw them go after Peter Navarro, like all the legit people who were working around Trump. They went after Paul Manafort, who helped get him elected as the chairman of his campaign. So I've talked to all these people, and the thing in common is they are not part of this cabal, this deep state that Donald Trump refers to regularly. And so they had a big target, a big bullseye painted on their back. Now, a lot of it, of course, was lawfare. If you could lock these guys up and throw away the key, that's fine. But if you can't, you got to move to the next step. And so we saw this with the intelligence community. We saw them spying on Trump. We had Chuck Schumer, at the time, the Senate Majority Leader, openly saying on MSNBC, it's really dumb to go after the intelligence community. They've got 6 ways from Sunday to get back at you. And of course, that's exactly what we saw. So the Mueller hoax was, I think, the first really obvious example of this. But just like Roger Stone said, when that fell apart, they couldn't pursue that. They went on then to the plan B. They started saying Trump was crazy. They actually started talking to some of his cabinet secretaries. And I talked to some of his cabinet secretaries. They were trying to round up support to remove him using the 25th Amendment, exactly like Roger Stone predicted. Because, and there's a lot of debate about, were Trump's policies great? Let's not even talk about the policy. The fact is, he was a threat to the establishment, to the uniparty agenda, the perpetual war, the globalism. I mean, he went in there like a human wrecking ball, tearing apart the institutions of global governance that these people had built up over generations. They were shocked. They were alarmed. They couldn't control him. So what they wanted to do was, if they couldn't take him out, at least take out his key people, replace them with people like General McMaster, right? That's another guy that Roger Stone mentioned in those interviews that we did back in late 2017, published in 2018. They replaced Flynn with General McMaster, a deep state swamp creature, member of the Council on Foreign Relations. This was a huge operation. And frankly, I think there's going to have to be, if we're ever going to get this country back on track, there's going to have to be accountability for all this. All this has to be unwound. We have to know who knew what, when, and I think we're going to need prosecutions.
Does it surprise you to learn that the head of the Secret Service, the director of the Secret Service, Kimberly Cheadle, confirmed that she purposefully, ordered stand-down orders for Secret Service to be on that roof for safety concerns because of the sloping roof? So we now have confirmation that she ordered, or at least someone in the Secret Service ordered, stand down so that Secret Service was not on that rooftop. Roger Stone says he believes that there was not one shooter involved in this. It sounds like this was a conspiracy, a deep state conspiracy.
It absolutely does. And we've all seen the videos at this point now where people are saying, look, we were warning the police, we were warning the Secret Service that there was a guy with a rifle climbing up onto the roof. This is not the kind I know there's a lot of incompetence in government. Anybody who's ever worked with government knows there's a lot of incompetence, but this is like a whole nother level of stupid. And at some point you have to say this cannot be stupidity. I mean, it's worth considering as a hypothesis, but these people would all have to be the most incompetent bunch of nincompoops to ever walk on the planet. Do we really believe that that's who the Secret Service has protecting some of the most important people in the country? I think when you just look at the facts that we have already, it doesn't pass the smell test. This looks like somebody somewhere wanted that guy up on that roof with that rifle, and we've got to get to the bottom of this, because whoever tried to take out Donald Trump just recently will try it again. if they're not held accountable, if they're not stopped, if they think they can get away with it.
Well, that's what I was just about to ask you here. Roger Stone, does he believe, they didn't accomplish their goal here, that this is going to happen again? Do we believe that we could see something like this rise up again and not miss this time?
Absolutely. I think Donald Trump got it exactly right when he finally spoke after he got off the stage. He said, "God alone preserved my life." And I think that's what happened. I think the goal was to actually blow his brains out. And through miraculous intervention, God preserved his life. But we would be very foolish to think that the same evildoers who just tried to take him out would not do it again. But we know the hatred that these people have. I wrote a whole book about this, Clayton, Deep State, the Invisible Government Behind the Scenes. And a big part of it revolves around why they hate Donald Trump so much. He's not part of their little clubs. He's not a member of their little groups. He doesn't go to the Council on Foreign Relations for ideas on policy. He doesn't show up at the Bohemian Grove and do the weird rituals with the weirdos that get together out in the Redwood Forest in Northern California. He hasn't been to the tomb at Yale. So he's not friends with these guys, and they've got their plans and they don't like him. And they've been working on these plans for a very long time. We would be very naive to think that they won't do anything to stop him.
I'll get you out of here on this, Alex, which is the President Biden piece of this. Obviously, all of the attention of the past few days has been on President Trump. A week before that, though, it was all on President Biden and how quickly he would be removed from this. Would Kamala Harris be stepping in ahead of the convention? And now Axios reporting, I think this got buried in the past 48 hours as well, that the Democratic National Committee is quietly steaming ahead with plans to technically nominate President Biden weeks before the party's convention in sort of a closed, with a DNC's current plans to basically train state party chairs next week on how to conduct sort of an electronic voting so that they don't even have to have the convention. Everything will be signed, sealed, delivered before the convention. Marianne Williamson tweeting saying, call for an open convention. Allow us to vote on a candidate. But it appears that the Democratic Party is going to keep this closed in order to keep President Biden in power and become the nominee heading into the fall. What do you make of this?
It'll be very interesting to see if they can get away with that. I mean, at this point, anybody, including the most diehard Democrats, can see that Biden is not well. He's obviously a puppet. He's obviously being used and manipulated by powers behind the scenes. So where this goes is going to be very interesting. And I think that was a whole nother reason why they had to take out Donald Trump. I don't believe that we were told the truth about what happened in 2020, but in this case, it would have been impossible to try to manipulate that. I mean, it's so obvious that Biden would lose this election in a massive way. There's nothing you could do to get around that. It's just too clear. And so taking Donald Trump out would have been a mighty easy way of making sure that they could keep the agenda moving forward. So it'll be interesting to see what happens at this Democratic convention. I don't think Biden is actually going to be president again. I don't even think he's going to end up being the nominee because it's just too obvious at this point to everyone. The knives are out. The New York Times is saying he needs to step down. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But folks, get involved. I mean, the future of our country is on the line here. Everything that's happening now is going to have an impact on your children and your grandchildren. Now is not the time to sit on the sidelines.
For sure. And these kitchen table issues, of course, driving the biggest moment right now for Americans who can't afford to put food on their table because prices have surged under President Biden to unbelievable levels right now. Sticker shock across the country. Alex, we really appreciate you joining us and hope you won't be a stranger. We'd love to have you back here on Redacted. Thank you for the great work over there at Liberty Sentinel. And where can people check out your book, by the way, the Deep State book?
Amazon sells it for way too much money. I don't even know how that works. The easiest place to get it is on my website, libertysentinel.org/shop. Thank you very much, Clayton. I appreciate the opportunity to come on.
My pleasure. Thanks so much, Alex. Really great to have you here on Redacted for the first time. So thank you guys for subscribing and being a part of our show here. We really, really appreciate it. We're going to open it up to some Q&A today and have a little fun on this Wednesday, lighten the mood a little bit and just take your questions here. A lot of good questions coming in today.
Depending on the questions, we'll lighten the mood. Let's see what kind of things we're asked right now. But you can put in your super chats on YouTube or Rumble, and we'll see them in either platform.
Yeah, we'll get to your super chats in a second. A lot of great questions. John Spencer, I like your point here. I want to read John's point here. He has a good point. A lot of us, but meanwhile, first of all, a lot of us are struggling to keep up with everyday bills. I mean, it's no secret right now. I mean, food prices, gas prices, even the power bill surging right now. Sticker shock. I mean, just try to go out to a restaurant, go pick up your normal amount of groceries. It's ridiculous. And if you want to own a home, I want you to call our friends over at American Financing. They're helping to support Redacted. American Financing is saving their customers an average of $854 a month by tapping into their home's equity, wiping out high-interest credit card debt. $854 is a lot, and it's like a $10,000 a year raise. Credit card interest rates are insane right now. Most of us are still carrying a balance from month to month. As Tucker Carlson pointed out, he says it's absolutely predatory what these credit card companies are doing right now. Upwards of 23, 24, 28% interest. And if you're only paying the minimum every month, it'll take you years to pay that off. There are no upfront fees to get started. So call American Financing today. And if you call today, you may not have to make next month's mortgage payment. American Financing, 866-890-8434. That's 866-890-8434. Or visit AmericanFinancing.net/redacted. And yes, exactly. So
I have a pet peeve about O versus zero. O is the letter. Zero is the number.
I know.
Yeah.
But when you write it out phonetically, it's better that way. So yeah, let's take some questions here. Let's talk about this. Thank you guys for subscribing, by the way. All you need, if you do subscribe, turn on a little bell notification on YouTube. It'll let you know when we're live. Same thing on Rumble. You can follow us there. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So thank you guys for supporting free speech on Rumble.
And I'm not being a bitch. I'm just a Virgo. I can't.
Yeah. No, she is a Virgo.
Yeah. Which sometimes is the same thing. My fellow Virgos.
I'm pleading the fifth on that. In the best situation for men, husband, just to stay quiet.
All right. Well, we're going to fool around a little. So we're going to do some, I mean that in a super chat kind of way, fooling around. So John, let us know.
Get in your super chats here. And thank you for your kind words here. John Spencer, though, I like he says, no, Redacted needs to keep distance from Trump. Need independent reporting. Yes, John, we absolutely agree with that. As I say all the time, Donald Trump has been very kind to my family. He was incredible to my father, actually. He would get on the phone and actually call my dad after my father had heart surgery and everything. So he's been incredibly kind to my family. However, I've been incredibly critical of President Trump here on the show. His stance on Israel, his stance on Iran. I mean, all of it.
The drone wars in Syria.
So we need independent reporting. No person is perfect. No person. I'm not perfect. She's not perfect. Nobody watching is perfect. President Trump is not perfect. And we need to call out problems. Colonel McGregor, who worked for President Trump, obviously cared very deeply about President Trump, but has been very critical of President Trump about the people that have been surrounding him over the past couple of years and who are telling him what they think they want to hear. And then he goes and sort of executes on that. And one of his big criticisms has been that President Trump usually only kind of takes action on the last thing that he's been told by somebody. So, again, but when you compare him to what's going on out there with other candidates right now, I definitely like that he's going to hopefully uproot the deep state. And that's a positive. Hopefully this time he'll drain the swamp because he didn't last time.
Yes, we'll see about that.
All right. Do you want to take some super chats here?
Sure. All right. Natalia says ex-CIA Larry Johnson said Trump's SS team was too tired and pulled, so he had to get the B or the D team. And we have, in fact, seen a lot of reporting about why he had not maybe the top tier of Secret Service. There are a lot of explanations that we are owed about why he didn't have the biggest and baddest mofos around, for sure.
User hello
JV
64
team should have known that was an ideal sniper position.
Right.
Good point.
If you've had, you don't even have to have special training. I've not had special training. I could look at that building and go, you know what, that would be a good place for a sniper. Maybe keep your eye on that building over there.
Yeah,
for sure. I mean, even a junior version of the Secret Service, like for 12-year-olds, the Junior Secret Service Kids program.
Even the JV team needs to be competent. They should still look pretty big and formidable, I would say.
Over on Rumble, Superior14, am I reading that right? Superior, thank you for your $5 Rumble rant, says, for your knowledge, Swedish media outlet Aftonbladet now reports a possible threat and unrest in Europe if Trump wins. Experts says, announced as a subscription-based article for attention. Okay. So they announce it on a subscription-based article so that you have to pay to get behind a paywall in Sweden if Trump wins.
Which also feels very suggestive, right?
Yeah.
That Europeans are waiting to revolt in the street. Are they really? That's interesting.
Why would, by the way, why would Europeans give a rat's ass about Trump being elected in the United States? Europeans are under massive pressure from their own governments and their unelected bureaucrats right now in the European Union and, of course, the World Economic Forum, the WHO, taking away their civil liberties, taking away their rights, taking away farms. Like, they're worried about Trump? How's there going to be civil unrest in Europe because of Trump?
Well, in fact, the European bankers that we had spoken to were hoping for a Trump election because they knew that interest rates were lower during the Trump administration, global unrest, because European economy has collapsed because Joe Biden has made it such. Because we don't care at all about Europe's economy. We'd like to see it collapse and implode for the wars that we dictate upon them. And so I think Europeans are hoping that there's fewer wars. There were fewer wars under Trump. The economy was better. And usually when American interest rates drops, European interest rates follow suit within the following year. So, okay, you say that, but that seems to me a self-fulfilling prophecy. Swedish media, Aftonbladet.
Let's see. Hello 644 says, Redacted, can you mention RFK Jr.? He's an independent. We can mention him. He's a Democrat. He's a lifelong Democrat, of course. You know, his father ran as a Democrat. His uncle was the Democratic president. He's a Democrat. He just, he's running as an independent this time. Yes. So to say he's independent, that's one thing. There's a lot to love about RFK Jr. Absolutely. I'm just stunned by how can we have any candidates who do not have to kiss the ass of Israel? Is there any candidate out there who doesn't just love to suck up to Israel? And RFK Jr.
Thomas Massey.
Yeah, Thomas Massey.
Who's not a candidate.
He was not a candidate. Maybe he's the only one. But I mean, RFK Jr. was very vocal about his opposition on Israel, on Israeli policy and so forth, and then suddenly did an about face. Totally flipped. So I don't know. I'm so bothered by this. Can we have any candidates who are not sucking up to Israel, who can look on the one hand and say absolutely we shouldn't be sending money to Ukraine for a war. We shouldn't be sending money into Ukraine and Zelensky. But then on the other hand, yes, we should be sending money into Israel to carry out attacks in Gaza.
In essence, we don't have a vote about the war in Gaza. We just don't, because they're both on the same side.
No, and they control every one of our politicians. And
it may cost Joe Biden the election, but it's not costing Trump anything to continue to signal that he will continue to support Israel.
Seth Shepard, thank you for your $9 super chat. Appreciate that. Henry Mann, yes, we read this one, says stay the course, keep telling the truth. Okay, thank you guys. Over on Rumble, Boden Nilsson says tuned in from Sweden. Appreciate what you guys do. Haven't been on YouTube in 4 years because they don't live up to my community guidelines of free speech.
That's a Rumble chat. Thank you so much. And you're right, they don't. I'm glad that you have high standards, at least.
Igor Tigor, 97, $5 Rumble rant, says, I'm calling it now. FPV kamikaze drones that are being utilized in the Ukraine-Russia war will be used in future terrorist attacks in the United States and potentially in the next Trump assassination attempt. Oh, okay.
I mean, but he should not go out in broad daylight at this point.
Yes. Okay, Igor, be careful. Listen to Cheadle's response. Dave Aiko over on Rumble, $10 Rumble rant, says, listen to Cheadle's response. She says they are referring to the shooter. Is that proper pronouns or more than one? Yeah, I heard that a couple of times. Didn't you guys hear when they're talking about shooter that we're referring to the shooter? Is that proper pronouns or more than one shooter? Like, are they saying
right,
shooter?
In the year 2024, you cannot know if they is plural or not.
They, them shooters. Smokey S. Sargent, do you want to take this one?
Says, when you drain the swamp, you do so to reveal what is lying below the murky surface. Trump did that. He drained the swamp and he revealed the lurkings and have been thriving below the muddy surface. The lurkings that have been thriving below the muddy surface, but he left them in place.
Yeah,
he could have
what does draining
pardoned
mean?
Julian Assange. He could have pardoned Edward Snowden, who also showed us the murky surface below the swamp, right? So these are things that, should he retake office, we absolutely should demand. I think that there's a honeymoon period right now with Donald Trump because he has survived something so harrowing, and he deserves our respect for that, absolutely. But that doesn't mean that the honeymoon should be the presidency. And so, we have demands as voters. voters that we should still remember, even if we are excited about a candidate or not. Sorry, I just hit the microphone.
Yeah, that's a great point. But so draining the swamp, what does draining mean? You said he drained the swamp. Draining the swamp to me means these people are fired. None of them were fired. Pompeo, talk about a swamp creature of the worst regard. Now there's rumblings that Mike Pompeo will be back in a new Trump administration. Really? The guy who's going to assassinate Julian Assange? The former head of the CIA, a liar by trade? You want that guy surrounding you? Absolutely not. A guy who just said we need to send more bombs to Ukraine and more weapons into Gaza. Like, these are the swamp creatures that we don't want. And I don't know. I hope they shut them all down. I hope they shut all these departments down. That's how you get rid of these. That's how they get rid of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, like if that were the case, that like what he did was revealed all of the shady people by leaving them in place. That's worse than not knowing they were there to begin with. Like if you just reveal that like how shady some of these people are, and then you leave them in place, then you're knowingly doing so.
Right. You want to take this one from Ghost Perry?
Sure. 3 years. Love you guys. We were brainwashed thinking Republicans were evil. We're not. BLK, if we can vote. I'm sorry. Let me read it over here. If we can vote Democratic, they have divided us. They provide us with poison, penalize us, keeping us out of the loop. Please continue to spread knowledge. So I think this is somebody who's saying that they felt one way and that now they feel differently. So I'm with you on that.
He says they were brainwashed into thinking that they were representing evil, and we're not. So, okay, thank you for that. We appreciate that. Very kind of you to say. David Foster, thank you, David, says $4 super chat. How big is the burrito that Clayton sneaks into movie theaters? That's my business.
It's a victimless crime.
So, yeah, it's a victimless crime for some people. Let's see. Not for the burrito. A burrito in your pants? You had to explain to well, should we tell it?
About what?
No, I was going to say, you had to explain to my 13-year-old son, what a euphemism is.
Oh.
Yeah, we don't out him.
I don't know if I can tell this story. Okay.
Out him. It was a funny moment, but any other good super chats you guys want to get in? Any other questions here? Soul to Soul has been a member for 11 months. If you guys do subscribe, thank you, Soul to Soul. Your name will pop up here on the big screen. You become a member, become a part of the Redacted Rebellion right here when you subscribe. So thank you guys so much for subscribing on this Wednesday. We will be back.
Tomorrow, we will be back tomorrow. So we'll let you know about that.
Yes. Yeah, I'm just a lot of great questions today. Thank you guys.
All right, I'm going to wrap it up while you read the chat. How about that?
I'm just reading up. Yeah, people talking about J.D. Vance and his big support of Israel as well. Yeah, I mean, this is, again, can we have any of these guys that just they put Israel first and America second? They'll say America first, but Israel. Like, really? Okay. So when did that happen? Well, I'll tell you when it happened, but we didn't get into it today on the show. By the way, we're working on a big interview with a survivor from the USS Liberty, speaking of Israel and the United States deep state, and we're going to be covering that story. So we follow the truth here on this channel. We don't have any agenda. Thank you guys for subscribing, being a part of our great community here on Redacted, and we'll be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern time. I'm sure there won't be any news to cover. Have a great night, everyone.